Hi, it's Penny here, and today I wanted to talk about some of the best magic systems in fantasy books that I've read, and I would love for you to write any recommendations of great magic systems that you've read down in the comments. I have a big stack here. I've been fighting with myself over what order to do them in. I tried to rank things. It was way too hard. So instead, I think we're just going to go in smallest book to largest book kind of order. The first one, though, is Brandon Sanderson. We're going to skip that to the end because I think he's mentioned in every video anyone ever makes about magic systems and fantasy books, and it's kind of boring. So let's start with one that it's less likely you'll have heard about, and that is The Golden Key by Melanie Ron, Jennifer Roberson, and Kate Elliott. The magic system in this book is art-based, where paintings are able to manipulate reality. So in this world, any kind of legal document, instead of being written in text, is always done by painting. And these paintings, there's a section at the very beginning of the book that just describes a bunch of different paintings and all the symbology that's used to indicate what's going to happen. And then it goes on to further describe the historical events of what actually happened. And you start to be able to see how these paintings are influencing reality. As well, in this world, alongside the noble line of kings, there's also a family of painters that supports the ruler on the throne. And so in this book, instead of people fighting over the throne, the power play is actually over what family is going to be the family of painters. I really love when the magic system is not just present in the book, but is a really significant part of the plot, which is what it is in here. Although this book is interesting because it's written in 3 parts, each author having written a separate part. So each part is somewhat different. Even though the rules of the magic are constant throughout, the magic is also used in very different ways. And there's one particular character who starts using it in very dark ways, which I really enjoyed. I love it when the magic gets dark as well. Then we have the Kate Daniels series by Alona Andrews, and there are more spin-off series after this series. So in this story, magic has started to come back into the world, but what I love is the way that it's coming back, is that it's coming back in waves. So sometimes magic will be working and other times technology will be working, but they don't really work at the same time, although magic is heavily based in this on beliefs, and because of that it brings in a lot of different mythology. But as well, sometimes during magic waves certain technology will work because people view that technology essentially like magic because they don't understand how it works. And so sometimes telephone calls will sometimes still work during magic, because when you make a telephone call, it kind of just feels like magic, right? But I love all the ways that society has changed because technology is no longer reliable, and the way that there are magical substitutes in place that can be used sometimes instead. But magic's not really reliable either, because at any time it could all go away. As well, I just love the way that this series takes different mythological creatures and adapts them to the modern setting. In this world, shapeshifters are caused by a virus. Also, the same with vampires, although vampires are driven by necromancers. So they're very different from a lot of other vampire books that I've read. And it does such a great job of pulling in different kinds of mythology, but it's the way that the waves work that I think makes it particularly different and interesting. Then next we have The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. This one's really interesting because Patrick Rothfuss's writing style is so lyrical and metaphorical. And there's a couple of different magic systems in this. So in this, our main character, Quoth, goes to the university to learn magic, and there are different classes that you can take depending on what kind of magic you want to specialize in. And one of the magic systems in this book is naming, which is very abstract and unknowable. So the idea is that if you learn the true name of something, then you will have the power to control it. But the process about how you go about learning the true name of something is very unclear, and the professor that teaches it is very strange. So I love the abstractness of naming and the unknowableness of it. But at the same time, we have sympathy. So sympathy is a much more scientific magic system. And in this, magic users are able to make connections between things, and through that connection, what they do to one object will happen to the other. There's a lot of rules in there about how those connections work, to the point where In this book, we have classes where the students are dueling against each other and you really understand what it is that they're doing. There is also an element of this magic though, which is the Allah of the magic user, which is basically their willpower. So the stronger your Allah, the more you're able to believe that something impossible is possible and hence make it possible. And I think some people might say that that willpower element takes away from the scientificness of it, but it never completely overwhelms the rules. It kind of just supports it. Anyway, I love Magic in Name of the Wind. If only we would one day get the last book. Then the next book on the pile is one of the books from the Raven Cycle. I picked this one specifically because this is where the magic system is introduced. But I will say, the magic system, you only discover it in this book. And it is somewhat spoilers for the Raven Cycle. So if you really don't want any kind of spoilers for that series, then skippity to the next section. But it is in the title of this book, and it is also in the title of the spin-off series, the Dreamers Trilogy. So if you can't guess, the magic system that I'm talking about is dream magic. I love dream magic. Even I almost included in this video the Wheel of Time, even though I hate the Wheel of Time and I think the magic is used terribly, like hardly developed at all. But I'm only halfway through the Wheel of Time series, don't hate me. But I love the dream element of that magic. And in this one, we have dream magic as well. But Maggie Stiefvater has such a great way of writing really abstract and bizarre ideas. And so I think her implementation of dream magic is just amazing. So again, be careful, spoilers. In this world, there are certain people who are able to pull things out of dreams. So when they dream about something, they can then bring that thing out into the world. And these things sometimes will work in ways that make absolutely no sense in the real world. Because of course, in a dream, you can dream anything. So basically, these people, these dreamers, can create anything. It's not necessarily that easy because controlling your dreams is not that easy. And some of them do have problems as well, where they will bring things out of their dreams when they didn't mean to, which can have quite disastrous effects. But I just love the strangeness of this magic system. And I think Maggie Stiefvater does some really amazing things with it, especially in the Dreamers trilogy, where we not only have dreamers, we also have dreams, if you know what I mean. Anyway, love this magic system. Then we have another quite rule-based magic system, and that is the Black Prism series or the Lightbringer series by Brent Weeks. This is a 5-book series, and it's interesting because in this one we learn more and more about the magic throughout the series. So what we know in the very beginning is that this is light-based magic. So there are people called drafters who are able to change light into physical substance. One description of it is that it's like a candle which turns wax into light, but this is the opposite, so it's turning light back into wax or some other kind of substance. So the different color of the light determines what kind of substance will be created. And most people can only draft one particular color, and they'll often wear colored lenses to help them pull that color out from the other colors. But there are some people who can also draft multiple colors, and we have this religious figure called the Black Prism who's able to basically split light and use all the colors. So for example, blue is like a really solid structural type of substance. We also have red, which is this very sticky, gooey, flammable substance. I think super violet is a color that's only visible to people who draft super violet light, and they use it a lot for things like domes of silence or letting other super violet drafters know something. There's also the idea in this world that drafters can only draft so much, and then eventually their magic will be used up and the iris of their eyes will start bleeding into the white of their eyes, and at that point they either have to stop drafting or they will go mad. In the later books, we also learn about these tarot cards that link into the magic as well. And I loved how expansive this magic was throughout the book series. You think it's something quite simple, but it builds on itself and goes beyond that. And again, the whole society in this world is based around this color magic. I love it. Although I always feel like when I talk about these books that I need to mention that there are some problematic elements in them. Some fat phobia, some misogyny, a lot of weird sex stuff. these books won't be for everyone, but goodness, I really love some parts of them. Then we have the Savage Song duology by Victoria Schwab. Is that the name of the duology? It's not. It's the Monsters of Verity duology. So in this world, monsters are created by violent acts. So the kind of violent act that's perpetrated will determine what kind of monster is created. And actually one of our main characters in this duology is one of these monsters. So he was created by a violent act. But then there is another character in this world who is purposefully doing violent things in order to create monsters that he then takes control of. I don't think this book or this duology develops the magic system as much as some of the other ones I've talked about, but I still think it's such a really great concept. Then I have another Victoria Schwab one, which I think is a great concept. And actually, I kind of wanted to group this with All the Crooked Saints. So both of these books create like a structure that allows the author to create lots of different strange abilities for people. So firstly, in Vicious, we start out with our two characters who are trying to investigate extraordinaries and investigate whether these people are real. So these are people with extraordinary abilities. And again, mild spoilers for this book series, so if you don't want to know, skippity. But during their university time, they do some experiments and they discover how people gain extraordinary abilities. And the way that people discover extraordinary abilities, spoilers, is that when they have a near-death experience, their very last thought will determine what power they would have when they come back. So we have characters who are able to raise the dead. We have characters who are able to become invisible. Actually, my favorite ability is Marcella in the sequel, Vengeful. Her last thoughts were, I'm going to ruin you. And as a result, when she touches things, they get all like rusted and tarnished and fall apart. I love it. We have people who can essentially shapeshift, and just the possibilities with this book series are endless, and I'm really looking forward to see what new abilities we get in the third book whenever it arrives. Again, a third book we're waiting for. Then in All the Crooked Saints, this is a really strange one. So we have this family that is able to grant miracles to people who are struggling, but the miracles are two-part miracles. So initially, the first miracle essentially brings into reality or somehow embodies the darkness that this person is experiencing, and it's only through them living with and coming to accept and learn to live with this darkness that then the second miracle will occur and they will be cured of this weird thing. Normally it's kind of a troublesome experience, but again, the way that Maggie Stiefvater describes the different pilgrims' melodies and the way that they're struggling is just so beautiful, and I love it. Then we have the Book of the Ancestor series by Mark Lawrence. So in this one, there are essentially 4 races, so 4 bloodlines, and each one has a different magical ability. The reason I really like this one is one in particular. So there is one bloodline where their ability is super speed, but the way that they experience it is through them being able to essentially slow down time and give themselves time to react and time to think, as well as just like appearing to move faster. And I think what I really like about that particular ability is that it's just something I fantasized about as a child. I love reading a book and realizing that it's the magic that I imagined having as a kid, because like then I just get to fantasize about being in this world and having that ability. So actually another book that I don't have on this pile but I wanted to mention is the Nevernight series by J. Kristoff. And this one, again, total childhood fantasy. Some of the magic is shadow based, and so these people who have shadow powers can do things like travel within shadows or use shadows to hide themselves. There's also like shadow type animal companions and like being able to control shadows, and just total childhood fantasy. I loved it. Then at the bottom of my pile, I do have some Brandon Sanderson books. So Brandon Sanderson's well known for writing a good magic system, and I think as well what he does really well is incorporate those magic systems into the world and make them so integral to everything that's going on. And even though there's lots of different magic systems, he also has kind of some core concepts underlying all of the magic systems in the Cosmere that links them all together. So I think probably the most well-known is the magic system in Mistborn, Allomancy, where people can swallow little bits of metal, and then if they have the ability, they can access the ability that's associated with that metal. So there's people who can control emotions, there's people who are able to push and pull against metals and like move around physically, there's people who can gain extra strength. There's all sorts of different abilities with Allomancy. There's also other magic systems in the Mistborn world, which again, maybe mild spoilers. I won't go into it too much, but there are also people who can store abilities or attributes within metal. So like you can store your strength in metal and then later be able to access it to be super strong. And I love the way that that's used in this world. The magic in the Stormlight Archives, it gets revealed slowly, and actually I haven't read this 4th book yet, so I'm sure there are even more things that we learn about in this, but it's just so amazing the way that he uses the magic in so many different ways. At the very start of the series, there's a character who can essentially switch gravity around, which is used in such an amazing way for a battle scene. Also in Elantris we have rune type magic, and in The Emperor's Soul we have the ability for characters to rewrite the history of objects, and just all of Brandon Sanderson's magic systems, he uses them in such interesting ways to add to the plot, or even just to create a whole plot around how people are using this magic. So honestly, everyone always talks about Brandon Sanderson whenever they talk about different magic systems, and it's justified. But I do think a lot of these other magic systems are just as good, if not better. So let me know down in the comments what other magic systems you love, if there's any other books you'd recommend I read with really amazing magic systems or magic systems similar to these ones. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you are doing well, and I will see you next time.